Alright guys, in this tutorial, I'll be discussing Adobe Illustrator with additional topics, and basically we'll be focusing on discussing about strokes and working with different issues that have been identified before with strokes in Adobe Illustrator, and also we'll be working on inking and making line art. And after doing some line art, I'll be showing you how can we put some colors on our drawings or illustration. So okay, before we start, I'll be discussing the basic parts of how can we scale proportionally and make the strokes consistent, and so on. Okay, so let's start with the basics, where we'll be discussing about how to scale the strokes proportionally and scale corners proportionally with the transform panel. So what I'm trying to say here is, let me show you an example. So I have this vector art of an owl, and if I'm going to scale this up like that, then release it, you'll notice something that it displays differently compared to the original image, right? So there's a reason about this, and there's an option here where we need to fix or check and unchecked in the transform panel. So like this, if you have this line artwork or line art, and then you want to scale this up, those line art should scale proportionally too, but as you notice, the line art doesn't work that way. Okay, so in this example, we are seeing that the corners are not being scaled up proportionally, and the stroke width are not being adjusted proportionally. So what we should have actually is this. Let me show you. Supposedly we should have this output when we scale this artwork up. So let me do that. So when I scale this up, you'll notice it's still the same, but if I'm going to undo that and then going to transform panel, again I'm going to use transform panel. If you don't see your transform panel, you can just click here. So under window tab, just find the transform panel there. Okay, you can just click that, and then when it's up or open, you can just check these options. So let me explain it to you. So scale corners basically refers to the rounded corners of your shape, so that it won't scale that way when we do this like that. Okay, so it's like we should be retaining the original profile of our artwork. So let me adjust that. So I'm going to select this artwork, then uncheck this scale corners, and after doing that, we can now scale this up without ruining the original artwork, right? So same thing with this. The original problem for the stroke is when we scale this up, we should be having the same width of the stroke, right? So from here, what we need to consider is, aside from checking the scale corners, we should check scale strokes and effects. So by doing that, we can now scale this artwork, this line art, with proportional size of the stroke. So from the original artwork like that, we can now just scale this up like that. So you'll notice the difference where the stroke width are being adjusted and the corners here are also being adjusted. So basically, again, what we're trying to confirm or to do here is, if you have this original stroke with the width of 5.29 pt, we should be having 10 pt when we scale this up. So again, what you need to do is you can just select this circle or object, go to transform panel right there, and then you can just check scale corners and scale strokes and effects. And also, if you wonder why the scaling on that owl vector displays differently, the reason is I have created that owl using this shape using the rectangle tool. So let me show you that. So I'm going to click rectangle tool, and then if I'm going to make a body like the owl before, okay, I can just work around with this rounded corners right here. So when we select this, you'll see this rounded corner options of that rectangle. You can just click and drag this, and you'll notice that it's being transformed into a rounded rectangle, right? So without these options checked, okay, without these options checked, the proportion when you scale the shape will go differently, will display differently. So like for example this one, I have this shape. If I'm going to scale this up or down with these options checked, we can see the difference. I mean the similarities of it, where the proportion are being remained or retained, right? So if I'm going to uncheck all of this and then going to scale this up, you'll notice the difference when you scale this rounded rectangle shape. So that's just how it is. You can just always check those options, and yeah, you can achieve that proportion output with those options. Okay, now next thing that we're going to discuss is still about strokes, but it will be more helpful to discuss this, especially if you're working with some line arts, and I'll show you the different techniques on how to work with them. Like even if you don't have any graphics tablet to apply pen pressure to your line arts, you can still work around with like the pressure effect to your strokes with the help of stroke profiles or using the width tool. Okay, so a stroke profile is what we have here from the option bar. So these are the profiles, so you can just so you can apply different effect. So what I'm talking about is if you have this original stroke or line, you can transform them into something like this, and then also you can reverse that with the method that we're going to discuss later. Also, I do have this tool from this toolbar. We have this width tool. So simply the width tool can be used to adjust the width of your stroke. As you can see, there's a difference between the width of these lines or sections of this line because using width tool. So in that with that tool or with the stroke profile, we can simply customize the output of your strokes. So let's get started. Okay, so let me create a duplicate of our layer, and then I can just delete these, so just to display the only original line. Right, so when I did this original line, what I used is I clicked this pen tool, and then I have created a continuous line. So first I clicked the pen tool, I adjusted the color of the pen. I can apply the size like 10 pt for example, and I just created this line artwork like that. Okay, next is I adjusted the size of this line, so maybe like 10 pt for example, or maybe much lower than that. And then while you have this line artwork, you can now apply the stroke profile that I've been talking about earlier. So let me duplicate this and put it here, and let's check what the option bar can offer to us about the stroke profile. Okay, so while you have this line artwork selected, you can just click here over the option bar and then select any width profile from the presets. So let's say I'm going to click this. Alright, so after clicking that, while your object is selected, you can see the difference now between the two line artworks, right? So for this example, that can just be easily done by again selecting this line and selecting your preferred width profile or stroke profile, like that. Also, just in case you want to reverse the line artwork, there are some cases that if you're going to make some illustrations, you want to reverse the stroke profile. So there will be no problem about that. You can just select this, then you can go to Object, find Path, and then you can see here an option where it says Reverse Path Direction. So when you click that, it will basically reverse the stroke profile that we have chosen earlier, right? So it is very good on making line artwork if you know how to reverse your stroke profile, right? And then lastly, we have this width tool. We'll be working with the width tool. So for example, I have this original line artwork right there, and I'm going to use the width tool. So width tool resides here in our tools panel, and let me show you how to use that. So while you have this line, you can think about any section of this or area of this line, and as you can see, while I'm hovering my mouse pointer, you can see like a white dot hovering over this line, right? Let me zoom this in and then adjust that particular side. So if I'm going to click and drag on this side, you'll see that I can adjust the width of this stroke. Okay, so you can freely adjust this and then adjust that maybe lower. So as you can see, using my width tool, I can now adjust my artwork, my line artwork, like that. As simple as that. So this tool is being used by different Illustrator users, of course, to adjust their output, like that. So from that, you can see the difference on how to adjust your line art. So again, don't forget to work around with stroke profile, and you can reverse it, and of course you can customize it using the width tool. Okay.